At BlueNile.com, you can find endless ways to make your moments sparkle. From classic and timeless jewelry gifts to creating the custom engagement ring of her dreams, all at prices you won't find at a traditional jeweler. And right now, you can save up to 40% on fine jewelry and 25% on engagement ring settings during the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale, going on now. Go to BlueNile.com to shop the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale and save up to 40%. That's BlueNile.com.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Super real.
Hey, I'm Julian Morgans, and you're listening to What It Was Like, the show that asks people who have lived through big, dramatic events what it was like. So here in Australia, it's Thursday, September the 12th, and that means that it's Are You OK Day. And this is a national day to encourage people to check in with each other, to see if they could use some support, some help, some love. It's basically a national initiative to try to mitigate our suicide rate. Globally speaking, over 720,000 people die every year due to suicide. For young people, aged between 15 and 29, it's the 3rd leading cause of death. And so, Are You OK Day reminds us that one of the best antidotes to this problem is to just check in with each other, to not succumb to the scourge of small talk and a reluctance to be vulnerable. For a long time, I've been wanting to do a story on suicide. And then a friend reached out to me and he said, "Hey, my brother died by suicide a few years ago, and if you'd ever be up for it, I'd like to tell the story." His name is Dan Barker, and he's a brilliant carpenter. He makes beautiful furniture and all sorts of stuff out of wood. And I knew that he'd lost a brother, but I didn't know anything else. And it turns out Dan has this story that he shares. It's not his story alone. He shares it with a woman named Melita St. Just. And they lost brothers to suicide, both of them, but separately. They didn't even know each other. They were just living parallel lives as total strangers, and then each of them lost a brother, and it propelled them together. They came together in a suicide support group, which is where they met. And that's how Dan ended up donating sperm to Melita. And now they share a baby. They share a baby named Olympia, and so from tragedy came joy in a very roundabout way. And I think theirs is a great story because it allows us to unpack the mechanics of suicide, what they observed about their brothers, how they tried to help, what worked, what didn't. But it's also a rare suicide story in the sense that it's got a surprisingly happy ending. And I actually had the pleasure of talking to Dan and Melita in a studio together. All 3 of us, we all live in Melbourne, so we got together in a studio in Collingwood, and Dan and Melita shared their experience of suicide. So, without further ado, here is an Are You OK Day special featuring Dan and Melita. Melita, Dan, welcome to the show.
Julian, thank you.
Thanks for having us here. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to be talking to both of you today. I'll get you guys to introduce yourselves one at a time. Melita, we'll start with you.
Hi, I am Melita. I live in Melbourne. I work in the timber industry, customer experience, and I have a little girl.
Great. Cool. And Dan?
Yeah, my name's Dan, also in Melbourne and timber industry as well. I run a workshop building furniture and got 2 boys and kind of a little girl.
Very nice.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah. Well, you guys share a little girl, don't you?
We do.
Yeah. Tell me about her.
She's beautiful. She's funny, naughty, talks way too much, a bit like me probably. But then she has like killer dance moves, which are probably from your side of the family.
Not from me.
But she's really creative, so that's probably from you. But she loves building things and playing and drawing and, yeah, she's a princess at the moment. Like everything is princess related and her favourite colour is pink.
Beautiful. Okay, so I think the special part of this story is that you guys, not that long ago, were total strangers. You didn't know each other at all. And you were brought together by fairly tragic circumstances, but through that, you've got a little girl who's a source of joy in your lives. So I'm curious to unpack this. How did this come about? So we'll just take the story one at a time. So Dan, do you want to give me your like childhood background? You know, where did you grow up?
Yeah, sure. Grew up outside of Mildura in a tiny little town, Red Cliffs. Population was under 2,000 and had 2 brothers and pretty easy country upbringing. Yeah, it was very innocent with motorbikes and a lot of freedom.
Yeah, nice. Were your parents farmers or something wheat related?
No, not wheat related. No, my dad's a doctor and mum ran his clinic. Yeah, there's a lot of wheat and grapes and citrus, but he was a country doctor.
Okay, great. Melita, tell me about you.
I grew up in Bendigo in central Victoria, one of 7 children, the eldest. There's 15 years between me and my youngest brother, so 4 boys and 3 girls. We had a bit of an unusual upbringing. We didn't go to school. We were homeschooled. We went to primary school and then were homeschooled. So lots of family holidays, camping, going up bush. My mum was a stay-at-home mum, and my dad was in the army for 21 years and then moved to being a civilian and working for the Defence Force. Ended up a assistant director at a geospatial organisation up there.
Wow. Okay. And would you say that you've got happy memories of your childhood?
I'd say I think they're quite mixed. I think early childhood, certainly quite happy. But as, you know, most children, as you become a teenager and start to move towards having some independence and your own opinions, that sort of thing, there were fireworks at home. And I think that, you know, with Dad being away for work overseas or that a lot of pressure fell on Mum to be a parent to 7 children. I mean, Dad was great. He was there when he was there. But I think that sometimes when, you know, Mum wasn't capable of probably looking after that many kids on her own, it was tough.
Yeah. I mean, 7 kids is a lot. It's a lot of siblings.
Mm.
Yeah. And your brother, tell me about the point at where you observed that, maybe he wasn't as happy as he could have been.
Mm. Yeah. Joseph was probably in year 9 and we were homeschooled, and he was very, very highly intelligent and would question absolutely everything. Him and Mum were button heads all the time, and then him and Dad. And so he got sent back to school and he got bullied at school. He wanted to do sewing so he could be in with the girls and meet the girls. And, you know, the boys would do horrible things like glue his rulers and stuff to the bench and pick on him. And we all danced, and Joseph danced as well, and they'd pick on him because he danced. He's like, hey, I'm in a classroom full of girls and you guys are all out playing footy on the weekends. And he's like, who's got the better thing going on here?
Smart guy.
He used to laugh about it. But I think he met someone and they fell pregnant and they were really young. And so they became very young parents with a, shotgun wedding. I mean, I'm 41 and at times I think, oh my God, how did the young parents cope? Like, it's tough being a parent. And I'm having that lived experience now of what he would have had, but without the life experience that I have. And I think that, at that age mismatch, both good people, but too young to be doing that.
Yeah.
And that was the start of the downfall, I believe. Yeah.
How old was he when he became a dad?
I think he was 21.
That's pretty young.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how old were you at the time?
I was 23.
Okay. So a couple of years younger, and you were sort of observing this play out. Okay. And were you in Bendigo at the time? Were you close with the rest of your family?
Yeah, it was a tough time. I think, I took him up Mount Alexander the day before his wedding, and I said, you don't have to get married to be a good dad. But he wanted to do the right thing and went ahead with the marriage. And I supported him as much as I could, but I was 23. Like, I probably wasn't there enough. I didn't realise how hard it was to be a parent. My parents had us young, started young, so I thought that he was okay, but knowing now how hard it is, I wish I could have done more back then.
Yeah. You don't know when you're 23, do you?
No, I had my own stuff going on as well, like my own life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Dan, growing up in Redcliffe, do you feel like you knew that your brother was handling life differently to you for a long time, or did it sort of happen when he was a bit older?
No, it happened later in life. So, yeah, he was, at the time, he was 33. I was 36. So, yeah, like our childhood and teenage years, that was all comfortable and fun. And, yeah, things didn't really go wrong for him until later in life.
Okay. And what happened for him?
It was a pretty rapid decline. I don't really know what kind of set it off. I think it was a mix of drugs, stress, and maybe isolation, or it's a bit hard to tell looking back on it. But I think he was also predisposition to bipolar, which my mum has, and he was just dealing with a lot, and it was just a rapid decline, as I said.
Where was he living at the time?
In Carlton.
Okay.
So, not too far from me.
Okay. And you were nearby. Were you guys close?
Yeah, super close. We weren't that close growing up, but yeah, when I moved to Melbourne, we definitely grew tighter and relied on each other and hung out a lot.
Yeah. What was he like?
He was a funny kid. I think he described himself as a sexy lesbian trapped in a man's body. So he was a flamboyant one. He was a real ladies' man, and worked in the hospitality scene, and just had a good time.
Do you recall a time? Because it seems to me that when this sort of stuff happens, that at first it feels a bit like, am I imagining this? Or maybe I just caught him on a bad day, or maybe he's just tired or something. Do you recall a moment where you really thought to yourself, no, I'm a bit worried here. This doesn't seem right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I can remember it pretty vividly. It was just a message exchange between us, and it just didn't add up. The things that he was saying weren't, they just weren't him. And I sent them to my parents, and they didn't really pick up on it at first, but I could tell that things weren't right.
What do you mean by things weren't right?
It was the words of somebody going through psychosis, basically.
Yeah.
They weren't his normal reactions or his normal words. It was, it was quite scary, the things that were coming from him.
And how did you respond?
How did he respond?
No, how did you respond?
I was trying to raise alarm bells for quite a while, but they kind of went unnoticed. I was just trying to placate Mike, my brother, and just try and figure it out, basically. Yeah.
Would you go over to his house? I mean, I'm sort of asking these questions because, we've been talking about Are You OK Day, like there's this idea about like go and check in, be supportive. And I'm trying to unpack what you did at the time because you were a novice. You had no idea how to deal with this. So what was your approach?
It was just a mad scramble, basically. It was a scramble between going to his house to check up on him, every other day, calling my parents, trying to get them on board. I was going to appointments with him, with his psych. It was just a weird, probably 3 months of just grasping at any chance to figure this thing out. And, he was admitting to me that he was suicidal and that things weren't right.
Yeah.
But, just couldn't get there.
God, that's hard. Melita, when you look back at this period, what was the first time that you noticed that something was really not right?
So, his marriage broke down, and I think he would have been maybe 27, 26, I think. And then he got really paranoid. So he was putting up video cameras. He was hiding meat inside loaves of bread in the fridge. Because he was scared that they were going to come, his ex was going to come back and take food and into the property. And that was a bit full on. And he was self-medicating with vodka at the time. I said to him, you need to buy yourself a bike again, get back on the bike, start like a push bike, start riding. And he did, and he cleaned himself up, and he was doing really well. And then his divorce went through, and I supported him through that. And he, about a year later, he's like, I think I'm okay to go out and start meeting people again. And he went on Tinder and met another complete mismatch. And that reintroduced alcohol and prescription medication into his life. And it was a really toxic relationship where, some of the things that happened were like you can't even comprehend. And he'd call me. So I was talking to him and he was back drinking again. Even though he said that he was an alcoholic and he couldn't drink, he ended up back on it again. So I was talking to him every single lunchtime. This is towards the end now at this point where he's 31.
Okay.
I was talking to him every single lunch break at work. I'd get on my lunch break, I'd call him, I'd sit outside and we'd just talk, and we talk about trying to get him into counselling. I was ringing multiple counsellors. Being in Bendigo, there's an overload on the system. I tried to get him into counsellors in Melbourne, and there was waiting lists. I couldn't, it got to the point where, I couldn't get him in, and we were on a few waiting lists, but we didn't make it to them in time. Yeah, we didn't get to the appointment in time.
That's awful. It sounds like he was trying to.
Yeah, definitely. He wanted to be there for his kids, and his ex-fiancée was also pregnant with his child, the third one, like as in the third pregnancy, and she was over that, over the first 12 weeks and, toward having the baby, which happened after he died.
Can you tell me about the day that he passed away? What happened?
I'd been overseas in Morocco, and I arrived back on Christmas Eve, and I didn't go home on Christmas Day to Bendigo because I was too jet lagged and it just wasn't safe to drive. And I remember I was in the lounge room and I was writing a shopping list because we'd been away for a month and we had no food. And Dad called. It was Boxing Day. He died on Boxing Day. And Dad said, Joseph's tried to kill himself. He's in an ambulance. I'm behind the ambulance. We're going to the hospital. Can you call everybody and let everyone know to come to the hospital? And so I called Mum and I said, you need to get up to the hospital now. And Joseph's tried to kill himself. And I'm thinking in my head, it's just, he's taken an overdose or whatever. They'll pump his stomach, he'll be fine. And I called all my siblings and they went to the hospital. And then I got in the car and I couldn't drive. So my partner at the time, Grace, drove the car and I thought I'll call the hospital again and see how he's going. And we were under what I like to call the big French fry on CityLink. And I got put onto the doctor. They said, we'll just put you through the doctor who's looking after your case. And all I could hear in the background was my parents screaming. And I said, he's dead, isn't he? And he said, yeah, I'm sorry, your brother passed away. So I had to drive to Bendigo 2.5 hours to not make it in time. I went in and saw him in the hospital and said goodbye. And that's something I'll never, ever, that's something I can't ever forget. But I just didn't get there in time.
So, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It sounds like a nightmare.
I hate that drive now. I do it as little. I try not to do that drive.
Yeah. Yeah. So he'd taken a bunch of pills and it just took, no?
No, so he hung himself and he died in hospital. They couldn't save him, obviously. Yep.
That's awful. It's really awful.
Yep.
When you look back at the immediate hours and days, what sort of memories come to you?
After it happened?
Yeah.
So I got to Bendigo and I knew that they'd all be at the hospital. I'm like, well, nobody will have eaten. Nobody will have anything. Mum will want cigarettes. So I stopped at Safeway before I went to the hospital. And I was like, well, I know this sounds callous, but he's dead. I can't save him now. Yeah. But what I need to do is look after the people around him who were around him, our family. So I bought Powerades and I bought water bottles and I bought Red Frogs. I bought things that were going to give us, and I went through Hungry Jack's and I bought chips and burgers and I don't even know what, I wasn't even really thinking, but I just thought people are going to need to eat and I don't have time to make sandwiches and I couldn't make sandwiches. So I just bought food, went to my sister's house and I said, I need to go up and see him. I need to go and say goodbye. Yeah. I need to see it with my own eyes to believe that it's happened. It's just at the end of the day, he wasn't here anymore. It was just his body. But the days after was numb. I was numb, absolutely numb.
Yeah. Was there a single thought that you kept returning to, or a memory of your brother, something from a period that kind of sticks in your mind that encapsulates this experience?
I forgot to send him a message to say Merry Christmas. Yeah. I was so tired. But the last time I spoke to him, I called him from the airport when I was leaving for Morocco, and I spoke to him on the phone. I told him I loved him. I rang them all to tell them each individually that I loved them. So the last thing I actually said to him was, I love you. And I kept on thinking, I'm so glad I did that, but I was so upset that I'd forgotten to send him that message that day, because I think if I'd sent him that message, would he still be here? But you don't know.
You don't know. I think on the balance you did pretty well. You finished with an I love you. That's pretty good.
And I just think, why didn't he call me? That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Why didn't he call me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into sort of reflections. I think it's important to unpack some of the learnings here. But Dan, I want to hear about your story. So, do you recall the period in which your brother really went off the rails, and walk me through the weeks leading up to his death?
There were quite a few experiences firsthand, and from some of my friends that witnessed his behaviour as well. My interactions with him, looking into his eyes, it just wasn't him anymore. He had this really, really vacant, foggy stare that it just said to me he wasn't home anymore, and he'd be rambling about all kinds of psychotic stuff. I mean, I had a heap of those experiences with him, but the scary ones were when I wasn't around, and one of my flatmate at the time, she saw him on Lygon Street one night, stopping cars and banging on the hoods, screaming at people in the street. She also saw him in Carlton Pool one day, just staring at the sky, like standing in the water, staring away. So yeah, there was a lot leading up, and he was withdrawing more and more as I was, coming closer and trying to figure it out. And but he was a very, very intelligent guy who was able to hide it as well, not just to us, but to his psychs. Yeah, they couldn't do anything for him, and I mean, essentially, he got what he wanted.
As in, you guys...
He didn't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, okay. Can you tell me about the day he died?
Yeah, it was hot. It was a really hot day, February 28th, and I'd been trying to get in contact with him for a couple of days because I'd sent him a picture of my wife at the time. We were pregnant with our first boy, and I just sent him a picture of what's the
ultrasound?
Yeah, ultrasound. Sent him a picture, and I just got one word back. I can't even remember what it was, but it wasn't anything. It was like, well, this is him kind of leaving.
It was just like a thumbs up or something like really
that. Yeah.
distant.
Yeah, and I couldn't reach him for a couple of days, and then it was about 9:00 at night when his wonderful neighbour Fran rang me and said she couldn't get to Mike because they normally walk their dogs at night, and that I should come. And I just knew what I was going for.
Yeah.
And I got to his apartment, and I opened the door. Yeah. I'll never forget the smell that came out of the door. It was just the smell of death. And I looked down the hallway in the dark, and there was his body hanging in the dark. Yeah.
No, mate. I'm sorry. It sucks.
It was just horror.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
how did you respond? What do you do in a situation like that?
I just screamed at first. I screamed, ran upstairs to get a knife, ran back down and cut him down, then fell into the bed with his body on top of me. And, I just went to hell with his body, basically. And I just lay there, hugging him as tight as I could. And, I don't really remember a great deal after that.
Yeah. You're a good man, Dan. I think even just to hug your dead brother, that's kind of brave. I feel like that's kind of brave.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that would have, like a superficial part of me, I think, that would have been like, oh no, I don't want to. But you just you loved him, so you hugged him.
Yeah.
And did you call an ambulance, or did you what next?
Yeah, well, once I got out from under him, I just called ambulance, called my parents, yeah.
Had he left a note or anything?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I found it in his bin
In his bin.
Yeah, so he wrote it, scrunched it up, and chucked it in the bin. From the top of my memory, I think it was he apologised and said, "Oh, I can't really remember at this point."
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that there was a funeral. Do you recall what you said at the funeral?
Yeah, I mean, I said good stuff.
Yeah.
I tried to say nice stuff. I got some closure at the funeral. I was able to spend some time with his body by myself and, have a different experience with it.
Yeah.
But I needed that.
Hey, we're just going to stop here for a quick ad break, but stick around. We'll be right back with more What It Was Like.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hey, true crime fans. Tired of ads interrupting your gripping investigations? Good news. With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. After all, ads shouldn't be the scariest thing about true crime. To start listening, download the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free true crime. That's amazon.com/ad-free true crime to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. So it's September and it's back to school time. And I'm not personally going back to school, but I'm always trying to stay curious. And recently, I'm learning something new. I'm learning how to manage stress. Doing this show every week, it sometimes gets stressful. Sometimes stories fall through right at the last minute and we have to scramble and I get stressed. So I'm just trying to learn some more positive coping skills and how to set boundaries on my time. And I think this is why therapy is so good, because it just teaches you these skills. If you're thinking about trying therapy, maybe give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. You just fill out a brief questionnaire and they match you with a licensed therapist. And if you don't get along with them, you can just switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/whatitwaslike today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/whatitwaslike.
Tell me about that grieving process. God, how do you even start a thing like that? What's that like?
I mean, I was trying to grieve while dealing with trauma. So, my experience of it is different. But grief is always there. I honestly don't really remember the year after that event. I kind of dropped off Earth for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, the hardest part of dealing with the grief was the fact that he won't be an uncle to the boys, my two boys. I wasn't able to share any of the good stuff with him.
Yeah. Melise, I noticed you nodding when Dan said that he sort of dropped off the earth in the year after. Did you have a similar experience?
yeah, you're sort of almost on autopilot. I couldn't really eat properly. I mean, I cry in the shower and I cry in the car. And then I worked, so I was trying to hold it together at work. And then as soon as I get into the car, I'd cry. I was also it's like a surreal thing. It's like everyone keeps moving, but you're moving, but you're moving in slow motion, sort of.
You're empty.
Yeah, you're empty. You feel like, well, your cat died. Who gives a fuck? Like, sorry, but there's much bigger things out there. Like, I know that sounds terrible, but
No, it makes sense.
it's sad when an animal dies or a grandparent dies, but when you lose someone to suicide, it's just the grief process it's not like anything else that I've experienced. I threw myself into counselling. Yeah.
And when you say it's not like anything else you've experienced, is that because, and I'm just projecting here because I don't know, but is it because it's sort of underpinned by this feeling of like, I didn't do enough, or is there an element of guilt, or is it just a lonely thing because most people don't go through this?
I mean, you feel different things. So you feel guilty for smiling at something, or you feel guilty for eating something, or you feel guilty because you laughed with your friends, or you feel like you're not allowed to have fun anymore because, like, they're not here to have fun, so why should I have fun? You have your birthday, and then you have their birthday, and then you have other family members' birthdays, and you got to check in on them, and we're all, you know, that you're suffering, and they're, you know, with other siblings or family members or friends, even their friends are suffering as well. And it's just like, the grief for this doesn't ever go away, but I think you learn to grow around it and live around it. And there is the ability to laugh again and have fun and do things. But, you know, if it affected so many things in my life, it affected my relationship because you can't be the partner that you were before. There's something absolutely changes within you. Yeah, you're not the same person. There's like pre-Joseph dying Melita and there's post-Joseph dying Melita. And I will never be the person that I was again before he died.
Yeah.
My worst fear of losing someone that I loved came true, like losing in a tragic way. That you almost feel like, even though I think we all knew at some point that was possibly going to happen, you just don't think they're ever going to do it. Yeah.
Dad, do you feel like life changed for you? Did you become a different person as well?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. You know what Melita said about was like, oh, your cat died, big deal. It deletes all empathy from me.
Really?
It did for me, yeah.
I mean, that to me almost feels a little counterintuitive because you're going through this process, which it's a big human emotional thing. I would have thought that of all of the emotions that, you'd have been receiving empathy from people, it would have brought sort of empathy would be a more prominent part of your world. But no, it just sort of neutralizes your feelings.
I mean, I'm only speaking for myself.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it took a really long time to be able to be comfortable with being happy and joy. But yeah, I don't remember what pre-Dan was. And to an extent, I don't remember much about my brother as well, because what happened that night kind of just blew everything up.
I understand that you were pretty unhappy there for a few years, which brought you to a suicide support group.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through that?
So that was a sibling suicide survivor group.
Yeah, it's a support group for brothers and sisters who have lost a sibling to suicide.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? You know, what's the format?
Melita would be able to speak on this a bit better than me, because I only went the one time. I was In the month after I found him, I was just grasping at any kind of lifeline and any rubber ring being thrown to me. Melita, if you want to speak on that group.
Is that 2019?
Yeah, sorry, 2019. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, it's the worst club in the history of the world. It's a club you don't want to join. It could be anywhere from 3 or 4 people might show up to there's been like 15, 20 people that will come. Wow. It runs once a month on a Thursday.
Okay.
Evening. I don't go as often anymore, obviously, because I have a little one. But the people who run it, it's a place where you can talk safely. I think, siblings are often the forgotten survivors, forgotten grievers, must be so hard for the mum and the dad, but which it is. But your siblings are your first friends. But yeah, it was a great group, and that's where I got to meet Dan. You only came once.
Yeah. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So tell me about the night you guys met. What do you remember about Dan when he first showed up?
I remember him walking in and sitting down, and we were sitting pretty much the way you are sitting right now, closed off, arms crossed, head down. And I was like, who's
this prick?
He's fresh, like it's fresh.
You can tell
by the way you are. Like I was a 2-year veteran.
Yeah, right.
Like you can, but with 2 years, it's nothing still. Like it feels, But I remember it was hot and it was really sunny in the room. And I remember Dan just saying a little bit about his story. And I said to you at the time, we've got a Facebook group, and then you joined that as well, the Facebook group, but you're not on Facebook anymore. But at the time, I don't want to go too far ahead without Dan saying anything more of what you felt that night.
No, that's cool, yeah.
What do you remember, Dan?
I don't remember much. I remember everybody being quite surprised that I was there so soon after.
How long had it been?
Not even a month.
Okay. You were fresh.
Yeah. Everybody's like, oh, wow. You okay? I was like, oh, fuck, should I not be here?
Oh, no. It's the opposite effect.
Yeah. But like I was, as I said, I was looking for life rafts. I was doing everything. I knew what had happened to me was devastating, and I was just trying to kind of get in front. I had my mate Rob driving me around to various places, seeing people, and I even went to my brother's psych's office and confronted him.
Oh, yeah? I mean, that's kind of interesting.
He even offered his services to me.
Pro bono? or with a fairly steep psychology charge?
I think he was a little bit shocked at me being there, confronting him. But, went to Mike's jiu-jitsu school, took his uniforms there. I was just trying anything and everything.
So how did you guys become such good friends from one meeting?
I don't really know. I mean, we just kept in contact for a while, quite sporadically.
Yeah, I texted you, I think, when it was Mike's first anniversary. And you texted me on Joe's... No, you texted me on Joe's birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I bumped into you.
In Dalesford.
That was Mike's first anniversary.
Yes.
Yeah.
We ran into each other in Dalesford.
Yeah. I had to get out of Melbourne for his first death day.
Right, yeah.
So I went to an Airbnb in Dalesford, and
You ran into Melita.
Yeah.
I saw them crossing the road earlier, and I was like, I'd only ever met you once before, and I said to my friend, I think that's one of the guys from the brother and sisters group, and I think it's his anniversary this weekend.
Wow.
And we were up the top. Oh, no, we were down the hill and you were crossing up the top of that steep hill. And I thought, if I see them again, I'll say hello. And then we walk into the pub for dinner and there they were. And I went over and said hello. And we got talking. And Mike was like, what, 5 months old, 6 months old?
Yeah,
Baby Mike.
Okay. It was just you and baby Mike?
No, my wife at the time.
Your wife as well. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And we turned out to have some mutual friends from film and TV, and we were just chatting. And then COVID hit. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So was this sort of chance meeting in Dalesford, did this really, I don't know, it sounds like you're acquaintances, you knew each other, but was that the thing that sort of brought you a little closer?
I mean, yes and no. We had kept in touch and just kept up the same amount of contact.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like all the, the events and the anniversaries, we're always checking in on each other. And yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because we talked about empathy a moment ago. And it seems to me that in the context of a support group like this, that you can empathize with other people who have lived through the same thing you have far more easily than in any other area in your life.
I've got a pretty good story about that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
So, and this is probably the biggest standout memory I have from the year after Mike's death. It was literally 2 weeks after I found him. I was at an event with some friends down in St Kilda. I can't even remember what the event was, but they'd bought tickets to it, months previously. So I just went. And afterwards, I was crossing the street and I saw a maybe 30-year-old guy who was on crutches, had his foot in a cast. He was beating up the bus stop violently and kicking the seat and kicking the glass and trying to smash it. And I could just tell that he was in pain and not just physical. And so I stopped him and was like, dude, like, are you okay? What's going on? And he's like, oh, I've just got a fractured leg. It's all good. I was like, and I stopped him. I said, like, no, man, like, what's happening? And he said, I've lost my mum and my auntie and my brother, and I just don't know what to do. And I said, dude, I lost my brother 2 weeks ago. And he threw his arms around me and just started crying and said, they don't know. They just don't know. Talking about other people that haven't lost someone so close. So, yeah, I mean,
And that rang true for you too?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty standout memory in regards to feeling empathy for things,
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels like a silver lining is that it gives you this superpower to understand what someone else is going through when they're grieving like that.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Who knows how much you helped him? I don't know if you stay in contact with this guy, but it's very possible he was a little better after meeting you.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. But he didn't look like the type of guy that had a phone on him. That's for sure.
Oh, dear. I mean, you guys, you've got a little daughter. How did this come about?
Well, I think, so during COVID, Dan's ex-wife also messaged me a few times. So we chatted a few times, just briefly on text. And at the time, we were, me and Mike's were going through IVF try to start a family. And that it was costing a lot of money and not really going anywhere. And then, with COVID hitting and, the isolation and the living together and all that sort of thing, it became a little bit, it was the beginning of the end for us. And by the end of 2020, sort of October 2020, we were sort of going our separate ways. September, October 2020, we were, separating. And I got a message from these two saying, Dan and I have talked and we'd really like to help you to have a baby if you're interested. And I was like, what? Like, I'd love to. Like, but I was in the middle of a really messy, separation and divorce. Well, not really messy, but, they're always awkward. And I said, I need some time to get this sorted out before I go on to do that. And then,
I got farmed out.
Yeah, the semen demon.
How? I haven't heard that before.
That's his line. That's probably stole it, didn't I?
Are you the semen demon?
Well, both of my boys were first try.
Yep.
And so was this.
Oh, okay. There you go. I should sit back a little in case I get pregnant.
No, so, I've had the snip.
Okay, you're good. You're safe. You're defused.
Yeah.
Okay. On that note, where did this idea come from, and how do you go about? Because I've got some friends who are going through IVF, and it sometimes occurs to me in the back of my head, I'm like, well, I could help you out, but that's a little awkward to offer. Like, how do you approach this?
One of my friends I grew up with, he's also a donor daddy, and I spoke with him a fair bit about it, and it's a pretty special thing, and there was never really a doubt that it's not a good thing. So it seemed pretty straightforward for us, and to be able to bring a beautiful little life out of meeting through death, just cemented the fact that we should do it.
Did the tragedy in the background play a role in your decision making about this?
Well, yeah, it wouldn't have happened outside of that. But essentially, had somebody else approach me, I'd be open to the idea, but this made it all the more special for sure.
Yeah. I guess that's what I'm getting at. It was at the front of your mind at that point that you're like, well, if there's a bit of silver lining here, this is it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely felt like something we should do to honor the brothers. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think too, for me, I think sometimes if I'm thinking about it, I think, well, if Joseph and Mike didn't die, then she wouldn't be here. So, and I love her so much, and I feel like in some way it's, it was meant to be this way. This is the way that I was meant to become a mum. And I'd struggled with the unknown donor stuff at the clinics because I didn't know who I was.
Through IVF.
Yeah. So I didn't know who it was going to, who could she become, could she be. But I didn't really ever have that hesitation or that thought, even with both, thinking about, if you think about genetic conditions and stuff like that and predispositions to things, with mental health in my family and in Dan's family, it was never a put the skids on. Like the way I thought about it is you go out and you meet someone and you fall in love in a heteronormative relationship and you don't care if they've got,
you get what you get.
You get what you get.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so special. And I really hoped, after so much time with IVF and money and that sort of thing, I was like, I really hope that it would be amazing. I didn't think it was going to work, but it just did, and it was beautiful.
Were you, when you first got that positive reading on the pregnancy test, did it feel like a miracle?
Yeah, I said thank you to the two up in the sky, and then I was like, you're not going to believe this, and sent it to Dan, and he's like 3 out of 3.
That was your first response?
Something along those lines.
I was pretty chest puffed.
Yeah. That's powerful.
Yeah. I it makes, in a roundabout way, like for me, Joseph's death, like something came out of it that was positive rather than it just being my brother died by suicide.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. As Olympia, your daughter, gets older, what story will you tell her about sort of her origin story?
Well, I was going to bring them, but I didn't have time. But I've made a couple of books. There's the first one, it's like the journey of pregnancy. And there's like Dan and I, with me laying on the ground with my legs up in the air. And I put them in hardback books. No, I'll be completely honest with her. She will know exactly how she came about. And I mean, I've given our brothers names as middle names.
Nice.
So she's got those, and she will, I mean, I tell her about her uncle, and I talked with Dan recently about could we put some kind of a book together so to tell something about Michael and one about Joseph. But I'll be completely honest with her about it. I mean, I've got photos of Dan's family in her little daycare book that she has at daycare, so she knows. We go to Father's Day to see Dan, and we do, Christmas Santa photo. We do all those things.
Yeah, my boys know they've got a sister, and she knows she's got brothers.
Is she a part of your family, Dan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
do you guys get together for like big events, Christmas, all this stuff?
Yeah, we do sometimes, but just as much as any busy families in Melbourne can, really.
Yeah, and I really struggle with Christmas Day because it's the day before the anniversary of Joe's, and I tried to get there one year and I just couldn't do it. Like I rang Dan and I was like, I just can't. Yeah. I just can't do it.
It's understandable.
But you went for New Year's Eve instead and met family you have from overseas, and they got to meet Olympia, which was surreal, like knowing that she's got, blood relatives that live overseas.
Yeah.
It gives me comfort that she has the two boys, because I won't have any more children. It gives me comfort that there will be, they're her big brothers, really. So, yeah, she's got them to call on when, boys are giving her a hard time, or if I'm not around anymore, she'll still have that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And there's not 8 other families out there that I don't know about that could be siblings.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that gives me comfort too. So there's no, she's not going to fall in love with a sibling or something accidentally.
It's a very, that's life or just life. What's that trashy magazine where they do those kind of stories?
That's life. Yeah.
That's life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's life is not that dissimilar to what it was like, to be honest, but that's all right.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty good with, connecting up people through through the clinics and stuff and making sure that doesn't happen. But it's just something that's removed from my worries.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering, this to me sounds like a question I shouldn't ask, but I'm wondering it, so I'll just ask anyway. Is there ever a time where it feels like you guys losing your brothers kind of makes sense because from that you've now got a daughter? Yeah. Just
It helps reconcile it, for sure.
Softens it.
Yeah. Like, nothing, there's nothing that could ever give our brothers back, but having Olympia there makes it special. Yeah.
And I think, she shares their DNA. So she shares both of our brother's DNA. So that's kind of, through us, she shares that. So, yeah. I don't know. It's when I tell people our story, people have come to tears when I've told them how, I did. I cried. I think I cried the whole way home from your house that night because I was just like, I hope this works.
After you discovered you were pregnant?
No, after doing the insemination. Yeah, I was I just really, because I was overwhelmed with the gift as well potentially to become a parent, and that it was with a little family unit that, an established family unit that I could then, sort of be like a limpet onto the side of. Yeah. And be able to yeah, like I said before, that Ollie will have something, you know, if she's got family that's just beyond me.
Well, I mean, I just learned that I made Melita cry after inseminating her.
Yeah, but you didn't even say the story of how that insemination actually happened.
I mean, do you want to tell the story?
It's not
Just because I'm
gross.
kind of curious. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
Let's get into the nuts and bolts of this thing.
Sure.
How does it work?
Pretty straightforward. It's just, into a cup, hand the cup over and
Yep. Oral
turkey based.
syringe. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is very much at home
Yeah, but you came
DIY
out
thing.
to the Song of the Lion King,
Oh, that's right.
holding
Yeah,
it
we
above
did
your
that,
head. Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's a nice touchdown.
Thank you.
Yes. the Bluetooth speaker starts playing like that song. And I'm like, what the hell?
I set it up.
Yeah.
You didn't.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Where did you
Yeah,
get this idea from?
I guess I'm a Lion King fan.
Yeah, I guess you are. It just came to you one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we just had a glass of red after and
Yep.
yeah.
Did you guys did you watch like YouTube tutorials on how this, I mean, I know like how babies get made, but like I would have thought that you had to like do it at a clinic and there were doctors and lab coats involved. This seems like a very homespun version.
Yeah, I've done a lot of research over the years, like being in a same-sex relationship, and we'd tried at home previously with like a few years earlier, and that didn't go anywhere. And then I'd gone into the IVF land and spent, done it all the clinical way, then had the eggs harvested, did it all that way, and I thought I was broken. But I think I was just waiting for it to be the right time and the right, person and the right reasons, and it worked.
Yeah.
So,
You hear that a lot. I've heard from friends who, have been trying to get IVF done for years and years, and then they give up. And they're at the point where they've given up and they're, having sex. It just happens, or, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've got friends that have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It seems like test tubes and, a really expensive approach, not conducive for baby making.
no.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some learnings. So, Dan, what does Are You OK Day mean to you?
I've thought about this for, a few days now. It doesn't really mean a great deal to me because, every day should be Are You OK Day. To me, it's just a reminder that maybe people aren't really still aware that you should be checking in. As a man that grew up in country Victoria, asking people, are you okay, is hard. And it's pretty foreign to country boys and country men and men in general. But I'm definitely a hell of a lot better at it now than what I was.
I mean, why is that? I mean, you guys both lost a brother. The stats on male mental illness and suicide are really scary. Like, why is it that blokes like us struggle to just say, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, how are you really doing? What is that blocker?
It's probably just I think it comes down to vulnerability and hard to show vulnerabilities.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing because I mean we all know the story that men should be men and you're not supposed to cry and all that, but it has a lot to do with your upbringing. If you're not used to receiving emotion, you're not going to show it.
Yeah. Would you say that your upbringing was sort of encouraged a traditional approach to masculinity?
Well, I don't think we really had any kind of education in to emotion, really. Yeah. We weren't taught traditional masculinity. We weren't taught really anything.
Yeah, it feels to me like something that collectively we're only learning now, recently.
Yeah.
It seems like, I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah, men didn't like poetry. We didn't like, hugging your friend was about like thumping him on the back more than hugging.
Yep.
it's only really changing now. Melita, what does Are You OK Day mean to you?
Just thinking about what you said about the not crying and stuff like
yeah,
that.
no,
I've seen
sorry,
my
please.
dad cry a few times. Like when one of our beautiful bull terriers died when I was a kid, and I remember him crying. And I remember we had this old cat, Rex, and he was 19 when he died. And I remember no one could call to tell the vet to put him down after he'd been run over by a car, so I was the one that had to do it. So I saw my dad cry, and I saw my brothers cry, and I mean, our family unit was probably, we were quite sensitive. But Are You OK Day? Look, I am glad that it's there as a national and global reminder for people to, potentially be triggered to check in with their mates. I have this little thing in my own head where if I'm thinking about someone, like if I'm thinking about Dan, or if I'm thinking about, one of my brothers, or, another friend, and I have that thought, I wonder how they're doing, I actually just pick up the phone and text them or call them and say, hey, how you going? And if I get some half-assed comment back, I'll call them and say, what's really going on? Like, are you okay? Is there anything that you need? Is there anything that I can do to help?
Right. Because sometimes that people just need to hear that. They just need to hear that if there's anything that I can do that can help, even if it's just to be an ear or come around and listen, or, send them an Uber Eats voucher if they're struggling. I do those kinds of things. It might be the difference between them having dinner that night or not having dinner that night, or if I can share, I will, or I'll invite them over. It's really hard for me to get out sometimes. It'll be like, do you want to come over and I'll cook dinner? That's lovely. But just to really listen to what, you see the poster in your mind now, but actually what do those words really mean? Like, are you okay? Yeah. Not just, are you okay? Yeah. Fob it off. It sounds to me like you're making it hard for them to brush you off. Yeah. It's a very active, very deliberate thing. Yeah. Yeah. It's not just, are you okay? Okay, I've ticked the box. Yeah. I don't. And, if I get brushed off, then I might leave it for a couple of weeks and then check in again and say, how you doing now? Do you want to go catch or change the way in which I'll engage? Like, would you like to go catch up for a coffee or, yeah. I mean, I want to know, when you look back on your brother's depression and suicide, what you feel like you should have done differently. But I would also want to just highlight that it sounds to me like you were really trying. So could you have done anything differently? I really don't think that there was anything more that I could have done or that our family could have done to help him. I spent hours on the phone to him and hours on the phone to places trying to get him in for help. I don't think there was, but I think he was caught in the perfect storm where his relationship wasn't working. He was drinking. He was potentially abusing prescription medication. He was having around that time, I think there was some custody issues going on with his children. The only thing that was really going well for him was his business. But it was a perfect storm, and I believe he didn't leave a note. I believe he just wanted the pain to end. And in that moment, that is the decision that he made for himself. And to reconcile that in my mind, I've had to accept that was what he wanted. Yeah. Yeah. Same as if I want to go and buy, a dress, or that was the decision. I know it's quite flippant to say that, but that was what ultimately in that moment, that was the decision that he made, that I do not want to be here anymore and I cannot do this anymore. Unfortunately, what that does is transfers that pain and suffering that he had onto those around him who loved him. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, after he's gone. So, but in that moment, that's what he wanted. He did not want to be here anymore. Yes. So I have to respect his decision. So with that in mind, what's your take on this sort of sentiment that that suicide is a selfish act?
I think that, I don't know, have you ever tried to wax your legs or your chest?
Yeah, I have.
And does that hurt when you go to rip that wax off?
Yeah, yes.
And is it like 1, 2, 3, rip?
Yes. Yeah.
How hard is it to inflict pain upon yourself?
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah. So it's incredibly difficult for the people who are left behind, but it is incredibly to inflict that kind of pain on yourself to the point where you're actually, going to die. It takes, you're either in a really bad place, but it's a really, I don't know, I've had, after my brother died, there were points in my mind where I thought that, well, I just don't want to be here anymore either. But I wasn't, I guess, I was too gutless to actually take that on. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I do.
That
Absolutely.
it takes a lot of balls to actually go through with something so horrific to hurt yourself.
Yeah, I think so. And I think people who espouse that kind of idea, that it's a cowardly act or something like that, I think they're overlooking how much pain you've got to be in to overcome the sort of self-survival instinct stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you got to really be hurting all the time. And you got to get to a point where I'm just like over the pain.
Yeah, the suffering, the pain, the suffering, the physical pain in some instances as well. Yeah. Financial pain.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been angry at Mike for doing it. He, as Melita said, like they made their decision. And for Mike to leave at that time when he was about to become an uncle, and I know he really wanted to be an uncle as well, for him to leave his dog meant the absolute world to him as well, and to leave us. And the one small comfort I do get from his death was seeing the ladder next to him still standing. Like, he could have stepped back on the ladder, but he went peacefully on his own terms.
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Sort of indicates that there was no moment of regret for him. He was
There wasn't a struggle. No.
This is what I want.
And as horrific as he looked, he did look at peace.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you look back at the months before he lost the battle, do you feel like you could have done anything differently?
No, I did so much.
Yeah. It sounds like you did a lot.
Yeah, I fought hard. There's nothing anyone can do, really. And, if you think you can stop it, you're only gonna stop it until next time.
Delay it.
The only thing I wanted to do differently was take him to the cinema that week. I didn't get around to taking him, and it would have been nice to have that.
Do you have any advice on how we can be there for our friends and family?
Yeah, I mean, just keep checking in, be there for them, show up with a beer if that's what they want, or help them with food, help them with washing. Yeah, if anyone's struggling, just keep being there for them.
Yeah. I have one guy, actually, who is very dear to me, who I know struggles sometimes. And I try to be there for him. I try my best. But I'm also pretty busy and somewhat self-centered, and, I've got a kid, and I find it hard. And I don't know, I was wondering if you guys have any tips on, like, you're always trying to balance life with the thing you should be doing. You've got a friend who's struggling, but there's always this sort of tension between, like, oh, there's only so much I can do. And, do you have any advice or thoughts on how to balance that stuff?
Well, yeah, my friends found it. I know they found it hard after to know what to do with me. One of my mates was crying a few months after, just saying, like, fuck, we don't know what to do, man. Like, we just tell us how we can help you. And
because you were in a bad place and they were trying to help you.
yeah, yeah. And it's just letting me know that they were there was enough for me.
Yeah. So, Melita, what do you want listeners to know?
I think you need to make sure that you're safe first. So I ask yourself, am I okay? What can I take on? Do I have the capacity to take anything else on? You're saying you've got kids and washing and cooking and working and all of those things. Do you actually have that space? Yes, you want to check in and make sure your friend's okay as well, which is important. But you first need to put, on the plane, put your life jacket on first. You're not going to be able to help anyone if you're not okay. And you could potentially put your own self in, a dangerous space if you are doing more and taking on if you can't physically take it on or mentally take it on. So I think it's really important to make sure that if you are going out to speak to someone or you're messaging someone who's mentally not in an okay place, there are multiples of services that are available that can support you as well as helping to support your friends. But I think that the other thing is not to feel, I feel guilt about my brother, but try not to feel guilty, because sometimes you just can't, you're not going to be able to, we can't solve everything in the world, and that we don't know everything that's going on inside another person's mind. They might only show us 10% of what's really going on. So to be kind to yourself as well when you are, putting that out there, but to see how people are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really important, because there have been times where I've, particularly after Joe died, where I was hyper alert to every single thing that was going on in everybody else's life and wanting to fix everything so nobody else would go through what I had gone through or what I was going through. But I think I have a couple of standout things that people did for me around that time. And I remember the first Christmas, my very good friend, bestest friend, dropped off, one of my bestest friends dropped off this box, and it was a box covered in wrapping paper, and all the Christmas trees and everything had been crossed out, like, no Christmas zone kind of thing. And in it had all my favourite things. It had a bottle of gin, it had a bottle of sparkling pistachio nuts, like
nice.
And it was my Christmas survival kit. And I just remember, I was not expecting it. And like you were saying, Dan, I don't remember a lot of that year after my brother. There's things that pop up and down that I remember, but that was one thing that I remember. That was my first, it was the first Christmas without him, and also his first anniversary the next day. So sometimes just doing something like that, if you know someone's gone through a breakup and they're going to be alone at Christmas, put another seat at your table, have them come for dinner, or, come over the night before. Get them something little for Christmas. You don't have to spend a fortune, but make sure that those days are sometimes the hardest days, Christmas, and if it's someone with kids and they can't be with them on Father's Day or whatever, those sorts of days as well. Trying to just make sure to be aware of those, or Mother's Day if it's a female that's suffering as well. And I think that, there is a lower amount of women who end up taking their lives, but they are certainly definitely out there as well. And I've met multiple siblings who have lost sisters, and I think women's mental health, postnatal depression, all those things as well are really, they really struggle too.
Yeah.
So
I think that's an important call out. Dan, do you have anything to add? That was fairly well summarized.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
You really nailed that.
Good. I guess to touch a little bit on what Melita said was making sure that you can check in on people. If you do, just follow through with it as well. Not a half-assed "Are you okay?" text only leaves them feeling lonelier and more scared. So just make sure you can actually go and check on them and give them an authentic chunk of your time.
Yeah.
That helps. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, I can't thank you enough for this. This has been beautiful and important. It's brought out some really useful stuff today. So thank you.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
To make switching to the new Boost Mobile risk-free, we're offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
So why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Because you have nothing to lose. Boost Mobile is offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
No, I asked why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Oh.
Wouldn't.
Because you love wasting money as a way to punish yourself because your mother never showed you enough love as a child?
Whoa, easy there.
Yeah.
Applies to online activations. Requires port in and auto pay. Customers activating in stores may be charged non-refundable activation fees.